Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's February 23rd. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And just when you think the volatility's gone and maybe the market's going to get back to normal, we have a day like this. Uh, we had a two-legged move down and then a two-legged move up, both of them 100 points basically in each direction. So that's the kind of volatility we've had over the last 24 hours. Overnight, we dropped almost 100 points, and then we took all that back and traded up almost 100 points. So really crazy 24 hours here. Is this just a blip in the road and we'll settle back down again, or is the volatility back? Nobody knows the answer to that question. And if they tell you they do have the answer, don't believe them. But you can clearly see the first leg down, then we had the correction, and then the second leg down. We missed that by a couple of ticks. Then we had a leg up and the second leg up, and we overshot that one by a couple of points, five or 6 points maybe. And now we're correcting again. So most of this last part of this move, or I shouldn't say most of it, but a good part of this second leg was after 2 o'clock. So there's a good many trades in here. There's a few green ones. There's probably some trades you could argue for that maybe I didn't mark on a day like this. There's just so many opportunities and so many trades, and some of them are really straightforward, great setups, easy to see, and some of them aren't. So if you see something that I didn't mark, it doesn't mean that you necessarily couldn't argue for it to at least be green. So just keep that in mind. But I think I've marked everything that was worth, even the aggressive ones that I feel were worth taking. They could have looked a little bit different on your chart, and maybe they set up a little better than mine, but that's just how I'm seeing it. So anytime you don't see it, there's a trade or two. Most of the time, 90% of our trades should match up, but occasionally I may take a trade that I mark red or blue that you think should be green, and that's okay, because a lot of our aggressive style will be based on our chart reading skills, our experience, and so forth. And something that you think's aggressive, I may not, and vice versa. So just keep that in mind, that you won't always agree on every single trade, but 90% of them we should see eye to eye on them. It should be pretty straightforward. But there will be that small percentage of trades that are going to be based on, especially if they're aggressive, are going to be based on your skill set and your risk tolerance and just how you're seeing the chart at the moment compared to how I'm seeing it or somebody else is seeing it. So anyway, you can clearly see in the big picture this was a range day, but it's a huge range. I mean, it's such a big range you can't really call it a range day. We just had 2 legs down in the overnight and 2 legs up in the most of the regular. I mean, 8:30 came here, so a large portion of that second leg was during the regular trading, but we quickly, by before 9 o'clock, we had bottomed out and then working on 2 legs higher. And you should be able to see clearly the 2 legs down and then 1 leg up, correction, second leg up. And they're both really, really close to measured legs, close enough to call success on a measured leg. So especially on a 100-point move. But anyway, let's back out. We'll go through the trades and we'll wrap this day up. I'm going to have to back way out here, but you can get out so far. You can clearly see the larger trends, and that helps a lot. So but let's get on out here and start going through these trades. But as you can see, we had the first leg down, real tight and real strong leg down. Then we corrected. And we're going to at least make a new low here, and there's a good possibility we're going to make a second leg down. And prices take off, and this is your next leg that you can see here. But and really short term, I drew the shorter term channel here, but once it started expanding, it's obvious there was something else, and then you can see that there's the large yellow channel, but there's clearly smaller trends within that you should try to narrow down and find as well. So hope that's clear. And let's talk about the first trade. You had to be a little patient this morning. 7 o'clock came right in here as we're dipping and coming back up. You could look at this as a triple test, but this would have to be your signal bar, and it's an inside bar. So I think you have to wait for something a little better than that. If you're just patient, in a few minutes you get this second entry short. and nice signal bar. Quick, easy scalp, comes back. Unfortunately, this is not a failed second entry long, because it would have been nice to be able to enter this trade. And it's just a first entry. It is off the key entry point that's well proven here. It's one of those you could probably argue for it to be green, but it's always risky taking a first entry there, especially after several legs down. But it is right off the key entry point, the EMA, all that, and this is pretty obvious. This channel is correct. So, but we drop on down, we get a close. We actually push through, so it looks like an overshoot. So you got to be a little careful. And it does come back right here, and there is a hidden second entry short right there, but that's a little bit congestive. It's just a first entry on this chart. So I think you want to wait, and if you're patient, a few minutes later you get a second entry short and a lower high here and a nice signal bar. Again, it drops on down. There's a failure right here, but when this didn't take on off, I was a little leery going short into basically a double bottom and a 2-bar matching low. And you can see it took it a minute, but it did go on down. There's actually another, you could actually look at this as a double top and treat this as a failure, but again, you're going short out of some congestion there at the very lows of that move, and just not a good place to go short. It does drop on down, and again, you get a hidden second entry here. This is a little more advanced, so if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. I marked it green, but notice the new low here. You went up, you pull back, you go up, and so it's 2 legs back to the EMA, the trend line. Nice bearish bar, but it's hidden. You could also treat this as a little failed break out of congestion, like so, off the key entry point. So there's a couple of reasons you could argue to take that trade. Again, I think it's green. And of course, we're dropping on down. And there's another hidden second entry, but we're not even back to the trend line here. This thing is very bearish at this point. I would be looking for the measured move as well at this point. And that's way on down here. So that's another one. Again, you could argue for it to be green. There's a failed second entry long right here, but we're just kind of in the middle here. You don't really have this channel yet. This one's played out. You got a break and 2 legs down. So you just have to be a little careful here. But finally, you get another second entry here. Technically, this goes 1 tick lower, I believe. Let me just verify that. The low on that one is 21.25 and 21. Yeah, it does go 1 tick lower, but it's still 2 legs back to the key entry point. It's a little bit sideways, but this is a very strong sell-off. We're not quite back to the main key entry point, although if you draw these off the lows here, you're probably back to one here. It's a little risky. I marked it green as well. You get another second entry here, but that's too bullish. And now you've had an overshoot and a break here. So we could reverse back up to the trend line. So I don't see anything else down through here. Just been away from the EMA for a little bit, and we're getting way down here on the other side. And we do bounce, run back. There's a second entry short right here as well. Notice first entry. You're moving up, second entry, but that's too bullish. If you'd went short there, you might have got out of that, but doubtful. You'd probably got stopped out. And we run up. You get a lower high here, but again, that's a little bit congestive. Everything's above the EMA. I want some more proof we're going lower, and I just don't see anything I like yet. You could argue that this is a failed second entry long, and maybe go short when it broke. When it broke lower right here, that's when it would have become a failure. And that would have been that's a possibility. Again, that's one you could argue to be green. As I said, there's probably several in here you could argue on that. Then we bounce. We're running back up. Again, you get a second entry, but not a very good signal bar. And when this fails, notice you got a new low, and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry, and it bounces right off the key, the EMA and the midline, and it gives you a nice bullish bar. If this breaks higher, it's probably going to trap some people, and we're probably going to test the high of this. We got to close outside, backed up. We're probably going to test that high at a minimum. At this point, you don't know that we're going higher yet. It's still a little bit early. Um, this trend line hasn't been confirmed, the blue one yet. You could easily draw this off the highs and say, hey, there's some resistance there. I don't know what it is yet, but we'll pull it down here and see what happens. And of course, you get that failure. You get a higher low here, but it's right into those highs. Not off the EMA. Failed second entry short here, but again, off that some kind of resistance line there that we don't know what it is. And you can see we just kind of chop higher. And again, no shorts here. This is a tempting long. You get a close outside a new low, but I'd wait on the higher low. That comes here, and now it looks like a range. I actually should have that just a little bit higher right there, like so. And you can clearly see that two-tiered range. You don't want to go long into that because this is what happens to you. It does end up breaking out, but you don't really get a good setup to go long. And then we just go into another range. Same thing, we're just working sideways. And now it's hard to say if this blue channel is going to end or keep going. You got a little bit of a close outside. I wouldn't call these convincing. You could probably adjust my trend channel just a little bit. So I don't think you really got to close outside until here. And then you got a couple of moves up to a new high, and then that's when we reverse down again. So I think it played out just like you would expect price action to. Only we're going sideways here. That one's a tempting short. But this, again, we're trending up now, and this blue channel seems to be in play, so you got to be careful going short. If you've got enough room to get out, that's another one you could argue to be green. Like I said, there's going to be several of those in here. It's just dangerous trying to short this now that we know that blue channel is in play. And we just don't get any good longs. So far, I don't see anything. This one is really tempting. We did push on through, and so there's probably going to be a trap here. But I just don't think I'd go long right into the high of that range. It's just too big a chance it ticks higher a tick and turns down on you. So we run on up. Again, no chance to get long, and then we're going sideways again. This time it gives us a little bullish bar here. It does make a new low, though, which is always a little bit risky, but there's some reasons I like this one. You got at least a triple test here, but notice the little double bottom. That ticks one tick lower below that huge bearish bar, and then it reverses instantly back into the channel. The odds are we're going back to the high side at a minimum. So I like that one as a trap. I'm still going to mark it green because it's a little bit aggressive. You really need to be a good chart reader. I don't know why this won't sit right there under the bar. But anyway, it takes on off. Turns out to be a nice trade. You probably get you a runner on that. That's one I'd try to pick up a runner on because it could be a major low. It doesn't turn out to be a major low, but you still get a nice runner there of what, 55 to, that's a 10-point move there easily. So if you can get half of that, that's still a 5-point runner right there. We break out the high side of this little range now, turn down right off the midline, and then we just start kind of chopping sideways. We're really making some lower highs and lower lows by the time we get to here. I mark this one as a possible long because notice the new high. You get a first entry, and then you get a second entry and a nice bullish bar. It's good for a scalp, but you're not going to get much more. It is a little congestive, so I marked it green. Then you could treat this as a failed second entry long. Again, it's a little risky though, but everything's played out for this thing to reverse now, so you might try that one. The better trade is when it comes back and makes a triple test right here and gives you a fairly bearish bar, and now you got enough room to get out as well. So this would be the better place to enter short, and that does confirm the trend line there too. So it's mostly sideways, but you made the high, you test it once, you test it twice. Fairly bearish bar. The bar is not perfect. This one is close to, I almost made this one green too, but I tend to like that trade because it's time. This thing, it's been a while since we had the break and new high, and this did fill the gap. I meant to talk about that. Here's your, let me show you your gap right here. There's your gap. That was the low from yesterday, and notice where this turns down. That's why I really like trying to catch a short there too if you can. So, I mean, we filled the gap, and you had to assume that's what prices were attempting to do there. Fill that gap, and that's exactly what they did. And I talked about that early this morning in the mid-morning chart. So if you're uh, part of our membership, you would have read that and known that was a likely target going up. But let me back on out here. And now we're heading down. And if you catch this trade, you catch a nice runner here. And then notice you get two legs back and a second entry short right there. Big bearish bar way away from the EMA. I like taking that trade. There's a lower high right here. It's a little more risky because it's a uh, I'm pretty sure that does break higher. Let me just verify that because it's hard to tell. Let me back out some more. Yeah, it does break higher right there. You can see the high of that bar is 53.50, and the high of that one's 53 and a quarter. So it does tick higher. It it still looks a little bit congestive, especially, of course, it wouldn't have, this bar wouldn't have been here yet, so it didn't qualify as congestion. So you may take that trade. I marked it green because it could end up as congestion, and it really does, but it doesn't matter. It continues on, and you would have entered it before it was considered congestion. Again, I marked it green. It's real close. If we'd have got a little higher low here and a higher high, and got a chance to get in a little closer to this, not quite as close to this low here, I would have liked it better probably. But you can clearly see two legs up and only one leg down, so we're probably going to get another leg down, and the trend may continue, which it does. And if you catch that trade, you get a huge runner here because this one just keeps going. There's another second entry short right here. I did not mark this one because it's kind of in the middle of everything. Notice the new low, and you get a first entry right here, and then it breaks higher and turns back down. So you get a second entry short on just a single bar here, even though I really would treat that still as the same move down. But it is a second entry, and if you took it, it's another one you could argue to be green. And then we're just too far away from the EMA, too close to the lows here. It's time to go back to the trend line. So just kind of sit tight. You might have traded this one. There's a hidden second entry there. It's a double top. This thing has been really bearish, but we just came off the lows, so I'm not going to mark it. But if it's another one, you could argue maybe to be green. And notice we bounce and we run up here. You get a first entry, and then you get a second entry right here. Normally, I would mark that green or tell you to wait. Actually, I think I've drawn this a little. It should be a little steeper right here, like so. And it's questionable if you get a close outside. You basically get a close outside, but you don't get a new high because this definitely closes outside, but it's a lower high, and this has been a strong trend, and we may be making another leg down at this point. We could be headed down again. So I like going short there just because it's all at that key entry point. It fails pretty quickly, but you would have got your scalp, and then it's running higher. But I don't think you want to go long yet. And of course, you run on up. I still played this as part of this trend, but you really could also look at this as a separate trend. But again, you get a close outside, and you actually get a new high here. So I like going short. That's probably going to trap people when it breaks above those highs right there. And look how far away it is from the EMA. Normally, you'd probably want to wait too on a lower high, but notice this is really two legs up. So this, on a bigger picture, this is a second entry, and there's a trap there. There's a lot of reasons to like that trade. It's so far away from the EMA and a downtrend that's looking pretty strong again. And if you catch that, it's a really nice trade. Of course, it drops down here, and there's just nothing going on down here that you really can trade. What you have is you have this little small congestion area right here. and you get a breakout. But so that's one you had the breakout down here, but you didn't get a chance to trade it. And I probably wouldn't trade that anyway to the long side yet. So you'd still be leaning to the downside. Again, I think you're better off to wait on a lower high, and you don't get it. It just the bottom drops out of it again. So again, it is a failed breakout. It's a very bearish bar. So again, it's another one you might argue to be green, because notice you got two legs up and you only got one big leg down. So there's a good chance we're going to get another leg down. You just can't be too early. That's what will usually happen to you. You know prices are probably going to make another leg down here, but your timing is everything. And without the right pattern, you could be too early. And so I'm really leery of that one. Turns out that was the right entry point, and you got your next leg down. It's not nearly a measured leg, but that's telling you something. And look what happens. This thing reverses and goes in the other way and starts that next leg up. You don't want to be trying to pick any bottoms yet, but you get a reversal here. It's not an ideal reversal, but notice your new low and you get a first entry and then a second entry, and it fails and gives you a fairly bullish bar. It's not quite back to the EMA, so I'm not crazy about it, but it is two attempts to go lower, and it is time for a reversal. And you can see it take off here. You're getting too far away from the EMA. No good setups here. At this point, all you have is this spiking channel to the upside. Then we just kind of go sideways. Again, this is a pretty strong move up. You're probably going to get another leg at a minimum. So I wouldn't be looking for any shorts yet. And notice we're going sideways. We drop out and you get a higher low with a nice bullish bar right here. I like that one for a long. The better one's the reversal, which comes here. And then we're just kind of sideways and you're outside, new high, and you drop back down again. Again, there's no reason to be looking for shorts right now. Everything's pointed up. And notice you get another reversal pattern. You get the close outside. Actually, you got to back way out. You really probably wouldn't have had this green channel yet. You'd have been playing these shorter term ones because you needed a lot more price action to really draw this green one. And I just drew it on there. I never really felt, actually I need to readjust it. Something's gone wacky on that one. I've had that happen a couple of times lately. Let's redraw that one. The way I drew that was I drew it off these highs and drug it down. I'm having a really hard time here for some reason. I think I'd drawn it more like that. And then drug it down. So you really couldn't find this until much later in the day. So this one really didn't matter anyway, but I just wanted to show it to you. You almost had to play these shorter term ones. So we drop back down here and then we start up again. And when we start out, we're just in the blue one, but it's obvious there's something else going on here too. And later you can find the yellow one. And you can see you get a close outside, couple of moves, and then we're correcting. But there's a reversal pattern here, not a perfect one, but it is off this key entry point, this blue trend line. It's not quite back to the EMA, so it's not ideal, but it's there. You may take it. If you just wait a minute, you get a second entry long here. It's almost 2 o'clock anyway, and this one takes off. You've got another runner and another huge move here. And this takes you into 2 o'clock. There's not really anything else until well into 2 o'clock there. So lots of trades today, lots of volatility. I mean, this is 25 minutes worth, and I feel like I went through those pretty quickly. But there's your big picture again. 2 legs down and 2 legs up. This was a fairly nice correction in the middle. So you couldn't rule out at this point that you wouldn't get another leg down that's equal to maybe this whole thing here. But in the end, it turns higher and you get 2 legs up. But I showed you in there how to expect that when this one played out and you were looking for the reversal. You knew then that, hey, when we started higher here, look for a possible measured move like this one. So I'm not going to beat around the bush because we're already 25 minutes into this one. So I'll wrap it up. Um, there were some really good trades in today, but this was not an easy day at times because these kind of days, you really have to narrow into the shorter term stuff with all the volatility. And some people have a hard time doing that. You got to train yourself to see it at every level. This thing is layered. So you've got the big pattern, which looks like a range day, but with a 100-point day, it's hard to call it a range day. Then you got two legs down within that range, two legs up within that range, and within those two legs down and two legs up, there's multiple legs in both directions. So, for a newer trader, this can be very intimidating, and you can get chopped to pieces. So you have to learn to find the key entry points, the trend lines, so you kind of know what prices are doing. And if you draw these short-term trend lines, they'll generally play out just like a full-time one. So, even in the short term, it kind of keeps you knowing you're trading on the right side. So just keep that in mind. That's very important. But I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.